would like to welcome everyone to this webinar, Change Your Workplace. We are very excited you can join us all here. My name is Martijn Kersten, and I'm working at Soul.com. Let me put the screen back here. At Soul.com, our purpose is to inspire and to train and to accompany millions of people to start dedicating their lives towards making this world work for everyone, for 100% of humanity. And we see that work, our daily work, our workplace can serve as a means to contribute to society. But this requires that organizations will need to be transformed so that people can see their work as a contribution, their personal contribution to society. Now, such transformation is facilitated by people like yourself. And that is also the purpose of this webinar, to bring people together that are aspiring to change their workplace and to create those conditions that are very necessary for meaningful transformation. The idea is that we will come together every month, and people all over the world are joining us in this webinar. And we reflect on themes that are very relevant to organizational transformation, to meaningful organizational transformation. And of course, we also reflect on our own personal development and our personal transformation as we engage in this process. Now, today, our theme is about purpose-driven organizations. Is that what does it actually mean and what is needed to actually become more purposeful? So, as the website has shown, there are many organizations that are now formulating a purpose. They have corporate social responsibility officers or departments. But what does it really mean? And how can we all become more working with greater levels of purpose? How can we put a purpose into practice? That will be our topic for today. And this webinar will last for 1 hour, and it's an interactive one. So, as I will show you, you see here on the screen is that we use an online tool that is called Menti.com. And during the webinar, you can go to that website, Menti.com, and type in this code, 583907. And there we will have a few questions along the webinar when you can answer that. And then it will actually give us some insight into how everyone is thinking about this subject, about what are their thoughts about it. Today, we're very happy that Dr. Astrid Kirsten will join us in this webinar. Astrid moved from the United States to Vanuatu a few years ago, and she founded an NGO called Human Capacity Development International. It's a small organization dedicated to promoting resilience, self-reliance, and inclusion of the people of Vanuatu. So I understand that in Vanuatu, it's not 8 o'clock, but it is 5 o'clock in the morning. Astrid, welcome. Can you hear me?
Okay, now, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, lovely. Good morning, everybody, or good evening, or any time of the day. I'm just so delighted to see all of you, and I hope you can all participate. It would be exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you for being with us, Astrid. as a start, would you maybe like to share something about your organization? Like, what is it doing? Why was it created? Just to give us a few like ideas of what the organization is look like.
Okay. Yes, I'll be happy to. For those people, usually when I tell people we're in Vanuatu, they're like, Vanuatu what? So we are actually in the South Pacific. If you think about, for most of you, other side of the world, south of Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands, northeast of Australia. So Vanuatu is a very small island nation consisting of 83 islands. It is on the list of LDCs, least developed countries. Vanuatu is also ranks #1 on the World Disaster Risk Index, meaning that we have everything: volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, cyclones. And Vanuatu is also very interestingly described oftentimes as the happiest country in the world, because it is a country that is full of people that are just brilliant. They have such joy and vision and resilience and determination. So I love this place. It's really wonderful. And we decided to settle here and found our small NGO, which, as you mentioned, Martijn, is Human Capacity Development International, because we looked at all this potential that's here and said, how is it that we could make a contribution to developing, to actualizing this potential? And that in many ways really is our mission, to walk with people, to accompany people, to provide training, to provide, in some cases, resources, but to really start with, and this tells you a little bit more about our process, we start with individuals, groups of individuals and communities. And we basically ask them, what is your greatest dream? What is your greatest, the thing you most want to accomplish for yourself, for your community, for your children? And then based on that answer, we walk with them to try to make that happen through building capacity. We're a small NGO, so we don't have money. That's usually, actually, sadly, the first question. How much money can you give us? And then we tell them, no God, which in Islam is we don't have any. But we have other things to offer you. We have a process to offer you by which we will walk with you to develop your capacity to access resources, if that's really what you want. But a lot of times it's really more about developing your capacity to then provide for yourself and provide for your community. What that means in practice is a wild range of things. So basically our small NGO, we've been up and running now for 2 years. We do anything from a project we call Happy Chickens, to sewing projects, to ecotourism, to general training, to teacher training, principal development, working with governments and working with NGOs. So in practice, it means that we don't care much about what is it, that the actual content of it. What we believe in is our process.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we continue, Astrid, maybe it would be nice to kind of talk about what is it that we mean when we're talking about becoming a purposeful, purpose-driven organization, you know? And I don't know if you have any thoughts about it, but I would also like to see if the group, the participants, have also something to, have some thoughts to share. So I would like to invite everyone to kind of see, you know, when you're thinking about this concept, this purpose-driven organization, you know, what is it what would it look like, you know, to you? What are some of the characteristics, you know? What are some of the necessary elements that these purpose-driven organizations should manifest? You know, like, if you wish, what kind of criteria would you kind of say, this is truly a purpose-driven organization? So let's see if this two works. So I would invite you all go to this website, menti.com, and use that code as it is listed there, 583907, and just write a few points. So like every time there's an element or a characteristic, just write it and submit it. You can submit as many as you wish. And we were very curious to see. So it is anonymous, so don't worry, like you can write truly from your heart what you think is really important. And it will show on this screen. So it's like, think about it. What are some of these characteristics of a purpose-driven organization? In the meantime, Astrid, as we're waiting for some other, these thoughts of the participants to come in, as it is coming in, it's a transparent organization. What are some of your thoughts? Like when you think about, HCDI, your organization, what would it look like, this purpose-driven organization? Because it's already very purpose-driven, given what you just said. But what are some of the characteristics that you would like that your organization would have?
I think that's such a good question, Martijn, because for me, doing this work is so very different from. So I worked for 40 years in academics in the United States, and I also served as an organizational consultant at that time. So I've worked with lots of organizations. Most of whom, sadly, were not purpose-driven. As much as we talk about, educational organizations and say they're all about mission and vision, lots of times they were not. So to me, what's actually most exciting about this small NGO is that I can really look at that and say we can really look at that and work on all of these exciting things that I'm just seeing pop up here. Make sure that it's collaborative and innovative and sustainable. Really, to have it be the kind of organization that really brings out the best in people. I did a lot of work academically on two kinds of organizations: dysfunctional or sick organizations, and what I used to call the beautiful organization. And that was a lot of theoretical and research work. And I feel what is wonderful about this particular process is that we can try to put into practice this idea of what would a different kind of organization actually mean. And I think for me, the major part of that is unity and collaboration. Just really having this organization internally and the people that we work with really work together and have everybody contribute what it is that really brings joy to their heart.
Well, thank you, Astrid. I see that lots of insights are kind of passing through the screen. It's very distracting.
I know, no, it's
these
exciting.
Are wonderful things. It benefits all. I see. There's trust. The main goal is not money, but what can be achieved with money. There's the unity, as you've mentioned, Astrid, and the collaboration. There is a clear why. It is a sustainable kind of organization where it's close to your talents, long-term investments. Well, friends, these are such a beautiful list of things that are passing by. It is systematically working on understanding what its purpose is, so that it can benefit mankind and how to put it in practice. These kind of exercises together really kind of shows us that there is quite a unity of thought about what we're talking about when we're talking about a purpose-driven organization. It is like this idea that an organization is not there only for survival. It's not only there to make more money, to make more sales, but it is like imbued with a sense of purpose. It's imbued with a sense of serving humanity, and that it is dedicated towards that. I see that there is this other thing that it is about the people with themselves, that there is that people are they're connected to one purpose, So they're united. There's also mention about that. There is this trust, there is the sense of collaboration, there is a sense of unity inside the organization. So it is like this inside out kind of thing. So an organization that is purposeful is not only serving something good, but it's also the way that it operates, the way that it functions is one of collaboration and being united. It seems that, you see the more things here. I would like to say something about this collaboration that also came up with other kind of exercises similar to this, is that it has a culture of learning. You know, that people are constantly innovating and collaborating and helping each other. There's this culture of trust, you could say. That is a very important element of a purposeful organization. And that kind of also relates to that idea. It's a transparent organization that like, you can see that what it actually says, it is also doing that. You know, it's authentic in that respect, that it is that the values are living. Well, this is a wonderful thing, and I think the long-term investment, sustainability. You see that like organizations are not only concerned about their next 3-month target or their 3-month bonus, but they actually are able to see how they can function on a long-term endeavor. It embraces creativity. Wonderful. Well, this one is, we can share with you all of these points that are mentioned, so please continue, I would say, but we'll share this with you afterwards. But let's just continue. Astrid, before I want to, ask your the next question to you, I want to introduce a concept that at soul.com we found very helpful. And this concept is about understanding the path to becoming purposeful. You know, it's about how actually, how does this transformation process actually look like? Now, this is, of course, a model that we've developed, and it is not, it has shortcomings and all of these things, but it's just there to help us to understand a little bit from all these transformations that we've seen, what is generally a path of transformation. We refer to that model as the 4 stages of transformation. Let me share you on the screen. So you won't see this one anymore. Sorry. These are, you just saw it quickly, but this is like what we call the phases of transforming a company. A community is that what we use for a purpose-driven organization. And we basically have seen is that becoming a purpose-driven organization is a process of constant learning. It's a process of action, reflection, and consultation. So all of these little hoops that you see are all the same kind of like cycles of learning, where we act on certain insights that we reflect them. Now what we've seen is that generally a process of transformation starts with the first phase, which is creating a new mind. Many organizations find themselves in this stage, and this is a very beautiful stage because it's the very beginning of the transformation that is taking place. Creating a new mind means that there are 1 or 2 individuals like yourselves that feel that there is a transformation possible. They actually feel that there's another way of working, that they develop some kind of a perspective that even their organization can actually be one of meaning, that their work can become meaningful. And there's this longing in individuals to actually be part of a change in the organization. These people are generally, they have an awareness that change is possible, but they're also courageous, because like within the current structure, within the current culture of the organization, they recognize that, can we actually make a change? So they start having what we call meaningful conversations with one another. They are having conversations with their colleagues about how positive change can be, how that can be made manifest, how very small steps can create a change in the way that we talk to each other, that we make decisions, or how we can change culture. So many organizations are at this stage, and this is a beautiful stage because it really, you can really see a lot of change immediately, not only in the people that are dedicated towards making a difference, but also in the organization. This model is based on a very important concept, is that the environment that we live in and ourselves, we are connected in one way or another, which means is that, we can only create and create change in our environment if we are changing, and our environment changes us as well. So we have to make little steps in our own development, and that creates all change in our environment. And when a small change in our environment comes, also we change a little bit more. We cannot expect that there's a complete radical transformation of the organization, whereas we still have the same, people that were part of the old organization. You see, so people change and organizations change simultaneously. They go hand in hand, and you have to work on both. You have to work on your own change, your own personal transformation, and the transformation of the organization. Now, when one or two individuals decide that, yes, I would like to contribute to this change, and it becomes a little bit of a contagious process. People become encouraged, people receive hope. We also want to take initiative, we also want to contribute. And that's what we call the next stage, which is creating a movement. So it is important that organizational transformation does not remain with one individual. It actually is open that more and more people start to contribute towards this, have that same kind of desire to make a change in the organization. This also explains why many of these meaningful organizational transformations is not necessarily top down, where there's this manager or the CEO that decides, now we have to become purposeful, or now we have to become a community, but it is like that there is this growing awareness from like 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 individuals that grow slowly until you could say there's a collective awareness. There's a collective kind of awareness about its purpose. Now, and this brings us to a next exciting phase, whereby people start to say, are we actually those structures that we had before? Why do we still have these? Can we not find them? These structures that we have are not just, or they don't really work for collaboration. We work in particular departments or silos, or the manager always have to decide on things. Or why is it that women are paid less than men? Or why is it that we have to compete, or we get certain bonuses that are promoting the short term, whereas we want to work for the long term? And because of that collective awareness, there is this. It's very easy to create new models, we call it. These are like structures and processes in the organization that really promote a culture of learning, really promote a sense of working together, promoting unity and diversity, and it breaks down all of those current structures that are inhibiting that new or confining that collective consciousness of what we're doing. We have seen very few organizations that are now in this stage, but it is an amazing process to actually talk with each other about how can we now redefine salaries, how can we redefine like how decisions are being made, all of those things. It's a wonderful thing. Now, the last one is creating reality or creating meaning, and that's really when the organization is like outside and inward, it is actually really affecting change in the people themselves, but also in the industry that it works. It affects other organizations. It is like really now able to transform the sector and the industry that it is in. So these are 4 like stages that we've seen. And what I said, the model is just a helpful way to see the development of an organization along these lines. It slowly moves from one to another. And as you're creating a movement, then you have to even have more people are like in that phase of creating a new mind, you know? So, and as you are moving towards creating new models, you have to have a very strong basis for this movement and creating a new mind. So these are, you know, it's not that you skip one phase, but it only becomes more and stronger, the previous phases. Now, it would be nice to see, Astrid, you know, where HCDI stands, where is your assessment? But before you have some time to think about it, if it's possible to think about where would you place your organization? But I would also like to ask that same question to the other participants. You know, assess where would you place your organization? Where would it be? Creating a new mind, creating a movement, new models maybe, bringing reality, then we would be very happy to get in touch with you all. But in general, we'd be very happy to see where are you in your stage of organizational transformation. And, you know, mind you, it's not so much like one is better than the other. You see, it is wherever you are is good. It's not a judgment, but it like allows you to know with clarity where you are and what is the next step. You see, if you're in creating a new mind, you go to creating a movement, then you know especially what is needed. So let me see if I go back to this. Sorry, you have seen a lot of things. So here is here is this question: is like where would you place your organization? So go back to your phone and start like identifying where would you place it. And here it comes. Here people are submitting their things. We're in creating a new mind, creating a movement. And mind you, like if you're in between jobs or if you don't have an organization, look back at your previous job or your previous organization. You know, where would that be? I really like this this tool. It's like it really shows a little bit of, you know, where everyone is. Wow, creating meaning. There's one that's creating meaning. Now, Astrid, as people are trying to assess their reality along the spectrum, you know, this is the difficult question. Astrid, like, do you have any idea where would you place your organization as of now? In like when you think in terms of these concept of this continuum of progress, where would you place yourself?
So it's such a fascinating question, and I keep looking back at your model, Martijn, because I really like the model. I particularly like the loopiness of it because I keep looking at these loops, right? Because I think like
Right.
as I look at our organization, I'm kind of hesitating like to say we're here or here because I think what in our small experience over the last 2 years, I think what we've done is we've gone through these different phases in that very loopy kind of fashion, you know, like I think we sort of started off
Mhm.
by saying, okay, how is it that we really want to think about organizations? How is it that we want to think about social and economic development? How is it that we want to think about how people's minds and hearts and pocketbooks come together in some unified fashion? So we spend a lot of time initially on the new mind stuff, and then I think we put together a small, very small movement of people to make that happen. And then I think we began to put together some very different organizational models, which really focused on collaboration, internal and external collaboration. And those models for us have been really, really important. As you can imagine, Vanuatu exists in a post-colonial environment. So I think the whole issue of how is it that you actualize equality? How is it that you really create equality and empowerment in a relationship has been very essential. So that's where a lot of the model work has happened. And then in small projects we created meaning, and then we immediately went back to like stage one, you know. So
Right.
I kind
Right.
of really feel that we've been doing a lot of loop-to-loops in our process, um, and continue to do the loop-de-loops, you know, because every time when we finish something, I think we have to go back and say, okay, so what is it that really worked? Where is it that we were totally wrong? And we have been totally wrong. One of my specialties. So I think we keep learning. So I like this thing, but I'm really hesitant to say we are here or here because I think we I see this as we keep going through that in the process. Spending a lot more time, by the way, on creating the mind than on the other end. But I think we're doing all of that. Does that make sense at all? I'd love to hear what other people's experience are
Yes.
with that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Astrid. Like, of course, we kind of made it as a continuum that is, moving from left to right. But maybe we have to kind of like adjust our thinking that it maybe also like in terms of like going back to creating a new mind again. You see, as you increase your understanding about certain things, then one is, okay, wait a minute, we have to maybe re-look at some of our, the purpose ourselves, and we have to look, what is it actually that we're doing, and go to that stage again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fascinating. Peter Singer mentioned, the world thinks in lines. I mean, we are thinking in lines, whereas the world thinks in circles. So maybe it is one of those, like possibilities to start like back again, and creating new minds.
Yeah. Can I give you one example of that, Martijn?
What did you?
Well, so one
Yes,
example I wanted to give is, so when we originally started, we kind of said that, so our main thing is capacity development is what we started with, and that's of course reflected in our organizational title. As we are moving along, we are actually finding that our major something is not capacity development. It is actually just walking with people. It is accompaniment. It is growing together. So to me, that was actually a big example of how, as we walk through this particular process, how our own way of thinking changed and had to change very fundamentally, and that was a big learning, kind of sounds like but you know, it was a huge learning process, and then for us to kind of sit back and say, okay, maybe we need to like change our mind again and keep changing our mind in that process.
Right. You know, they touch upon something very interesting, Astrid, which is like a characteristic actually of a purposeful driven organization, is that the purpose also evolves.
Mm-hmm.
We see it actually like our capacity to understand purpose and, you know, like it becomes more and more refined, you could say, you know, that the purpose is not something that is set in stone, but we constantly can look at it and to see this is still true, and is this actually, are there new insights that would refine or adjust the purpose more? So that is one of the, in one of our articles actually at soul.com, we actually say like that is like one of the major components of purpose, that it is an evolving process. But Astrid, like now I see, like, you know, imagine that creating a new mind, like most of our other participants are in that stage, you know, of creating a new mind. And maybe like, you know, maybe you got that loop once or twice, you made that loop. And now imagine that, you know, the stage of creating a new mind for HCDI, you know, what are some of the ways to move to creating a movement? You see, how do you actually, what are some of the characteristics of that stage of creating a new mind? Like what can, you know, what is the next step also for yourself, you know, to move to the next stage?
From mind to movement, you mean?
Yes, how to create a movement. By the way, Astrid, before we go into that question, but you know, you can actually also like submit your questions through the chat. So if you have any question that is very much like you want to discuss it, please like write to me, and then we can kind of we note your question and we can integrate that into the discussion that we have. So right now, also if you just joined this webinar, we're talking about how to make this, how to make your organization more purposeful. And we have said that it is important to first understand where you are in that development and then how to go to the next stage. So as you've seen that most of us are in this creating a new mind, and it might be nice now to look at this more carefully and to see what are the characteristics of this stage and what is needed during this stage. Like what kind of, when you consider yourself as changing your organization, what is it that you need to do? And what kind of capacities do you need to develop to be effective in this stage as an agent of change in your organization? Well, coming back to you, Astrid, as we are hoping to receive some questions also from others, what have you found from your own experience? Like what actually creates, what is necessary, you know, for an individual who wants to move to the next stage? You know, what needs to be done right now in your organization, you think, to become more purposeful?
Can I just, and this is just my own experience, I always get totally lost on these sites. The chat thing, you kind of, if you put your mouse on the very bottom of the screen, the chat thing will appear. So for those of you that couldn't find it, like I would be the one that like, where is the chat? So anyway, it's on the bottom there. So yeah, so that's such a fascinating question. So for, I think for HCDI, what it has meant is I find that we keep going back to, Martijn, to empowerment. You know, I think for me, one of the challenges in HCDI has been that I came to Vanuatu as an academic with 40 years of experience and all these letters behind my name and everything else. And then they said, okay, so let's have a group of people and we work together. and for most people, the response to that is kind of, yeah, so that means like you're going to do it or you're going to tell me what to do. So I think the the big the big challenge has been like, so how do we get over that? How do we get away from that? How do we create a situation where really everybody is empowered? And a lot of that for me has meant that um, I keep thinking about how do we step into situations together? How do we learn together? How do we as an organization create opportunities and space for other people? Because I think that model, and that's kind of the thing, like creating new models, I think the model that we have to get away from is that one person has the answers, because certainly in this situation, I do not have answers.
Right.
I'm so answerless. It's amazing. Um, so to keep creating that particular space has been the most challenging and the most useful for us, which has really meant like everything that happens has to happen together, has to happen collaboratively. And for me, it has meant that lots of times the most useful thing for me is to just keep my mouth shut.
To keep your mouth shut, actually. That's it.
Yeah. I was modeling that. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, like, what we have seen, like organizations that are in this stage, where there's one or two individuals that really aspire for change, that is one of the first qualities and capacities to acquire, which is a capacity to listen and to keep your mouth shut. To really start like listening to your colleagues and to really try to understand what is it that they are thinking, So this is actually how transformation, funny enough that you mentioned it, but it's very nice. And I would like to also see if other individuals have the same experience, is that you could say that organizational transformation starts with shutting up your mouth and like start to listen. And to start like trying to see if you can engage in conversations. We've seen that with others, is that when individuals start to engage in meaningful conversations with each other about what is the potential of this organization, what is it that society asks of us, can we imagine a workplace where we can learn and collaborate together, and how would that look like? So part of the qualities and the capacities that this stage requires of individuals is actually that capacity to listen and to capacity to engage in meaningful conversations. And again, to constantly reflect and act and, and then consult with each other to bring people to have that sense of doing things together, as you said. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at the chat to see. This is at the heart of everything. Taba is saying that this is so true. This is really what it is all about. Turning changing businesses and organizations around. A question from Yolanda is that, so going from creating a new mind to a movement is about getting people involved. I don't know from your experience, Astrid, is that actually the difference? Creating a new mind to creating a movement? Is that something that you could say that is just more and more people are involved?
In my experience, absolutely. Because if it's like just my head, then it doesn't do anything. But I think it has to be like our collective head, and then getting everybody to work with that, and getting everybody to own a piece of that in lots of different ways. So I was going to actually give a very small example of that. So our first paying project was a small project. We got a contract to do an organizational assessment for a local organization, it's called Farm Support Organization. And they needed to have an organizational assessment done. And they hired us as an organization. So I basically went in with two of the people that had become a part of HCDI, who really had no background in organizational capacity assessment, but we went in as a team, walking through the process, designing the process together, implementing the process. Everybody carried a different piece. So we sort of modeled it, we practiced it beforehand, then we rolled it out, and we kept checking with each other. And then at the end of that small contract, it was a 2-day process, and then writing up a report. We had successfully completed the project, but we also had done capacity building. And then the other thing that we did, and that's kind of, again, going back to creating new models, we then had made our first very small pile of money. So then we sat down and said, okay, what are we going to do with our small pile of money? And we decided to basically do 2 things. So half of the small pile of money went to the 2 members of the team to start education processes. So they were working in 2 areas. So one person went to it was a new organic coconut farming seminar. So it paid for him to do the organic coconut training. And the other person started her master's in development studies. So it went for that for a reason, right? For the involvement in the capacity building.
Right.
And then the other half actually went to funding 2 new model chicken projects, because that's kind of one of the things that we were working with was chicken. So it funded 2 model chicken projects. So I'm giving that as an example because I think it has to also mean, like, when we think about what does it mean to get involved, I think part of the involvement means, like, really making sure that people have a spiritual, emotional, but also material kind of portion of the organization. You know, like they have to own that fully. And sometimes that miserably fails, by the way. One of our investments in the Happy Chicken Project was really successful. The other one completely fell down. So then we also had to go back and look. So why did one really work and why did the other one really fall down? So we went back to the movement and the mind and the model and everything.
Right. And that's interesting that you've mentioned. Yeah? It's like, how to actually involve more individuals, you know? And I think you've mentioned that you learn together, right? And you take them along in a process of learning. And that is a very particular kind of characteristic of that stage of creating a movement, is that, it's something that is collective. That it is like, it's not run by one charismatic leader or something, but that actually that we are accompanying one another in, like, taking initiative. So what we see also with creating a movement is that people everywhere in the organization start to actually take initiative. And they are also supporting one another. Like, oh, I would like to introduce this positive change. Okay, I will help you with that. And so creating a movement is also characterized by a sense of bubbliness and a sense of chaos also, like you could say. That there's an excitement, there's a new wind blowing of energy, because we have unlocked something in individuals that what they thought beforehand was not possible. Suddenly they recognize that they can actually be architects of their own organization, as opposed to, like, just what we call, like, victims, or, like, people just have to do what they've been told. So that stage of creating a movement, also coming back to Yolanda's question, is not only getting more people involved, but it also brings something else. It brings a sense of excitement and a sense of a lot of, like, bubbly kind of, like, change in the organization. As if, like, when spring comes, you see that one flower is emerging, and then suddenly many more come as a result. So, very interesting. So, like, I would be interested, like, also, Astrid, you said, like, one person is creating meaning. I don't know if that person would like to also share why it is, you know, they're at the forefront of organizational development in terms of reaching that stage. So please, like, you know, if you feel comfortable, you can also share your thoughts. But is there any other question from the group? But also, like, Astrid, do you have any more like thoughts or things that you wish to share from your experience in becoming a purposeful organization?
I would love to actually hear, if it's okay, from any other of our participants. Is it okay if they like unmute and say something, or because I think like learning together to me is always like the more interesting something there. People are shy to
yes, I can unmute everyone if they want to say something. Let me see, but it might be that we get a lot of noise from all kinds of different corners. Okay. Let's see. Friends, if there's anything that you want to ask or anything you want to contribute also, please feel free. We have like 10 more minutes. Are there any like thoughts or new insights or questions that you want to share with the rest of us?
So I will ask a question if possible. Knowing again the characteristic of Astrid and the motivation and the purpose and the vision, how do you maintain the motivation and how do you rejuvenate your resolve?
That's a very tough question, Tabby. I garden a lot. I don't know. When I get really frustrated, I grow flowers because they're easier. I think the ultimately for the organization though, it's such an important question, isn't it? Because I think so often like our vision is clear and I think our intentions are pure and our heart is pure, and then there are all these things that happen, like it doesn't happen the way we think it does, or people misunderstand, or the whole thing falls down, and you know there's all those things that continuously happen. And personally what I found is that if as a group, number one, we kind of need to do it together. I think for in our experience, when you feel by yourself, so the Bishlama expression, Bishlama is the language here, so they say, suppose you won one, you know, good, you know, if you're just by yourself, it doesn't work. So really staying together as a group, working together as a group. It was interesting, one of our long-term collaborators yesterday told me that the thing that she has appreciated the most about being part of HCDI was the space to make mistakes. You know, that it was a space where we all try and we try our best, and then we all make mistakes, and then we say, yeah, oh wow, that's an interesting mistake, let's go learn from that, you know. So creating that space, but keep doing it together, to keep coming back to what is it that really want to be about, you know. Can we keep that alive, and just admitting in the process that sometimes, you know, sometimes it really doesn't work, and then we go back and we try to figure out why didn't it work, and to keep doing that together. The hardest times I think have been where that didn't happen. So if any one of us sort of felt like they were out there by themselves with this huge thing, like that doesn't work. But to keep coming back and doing it together, doing it in unity, and keep going back to the vision. That's the only thing I think that, you know, keeps it alive. What's your experience with that?
Actually, that's like a very interesting point that you raised. You know, how our will to act, or our motivation. There's lots of things written about motivation, and what we have seen is that you know, the will to continue or the will to act, and all of those things are very much related to the concept of hope. You know, so if a person is hopeful, it actually takes meaningful initiatives. But when hope decreases, we said, what's the point? And then you start, your own initiative diminishes, and like that enthusiasm vanishes. So when we think about like, okay, how do we keep motivation? One has to develop and talking about like it's a hopeful future together. And, what is actually creating hope is that, you can, and that actually oftentimes takes place in these meaningful conversations where there are two factors that are very important that promote hope, and that also does promote like enthusiasm, and that also like stimulate people to act and take initiative. One such factor is that you are able to see possibilities. So when actually someone actually in conversation, you see, wow, this is also possible. It actually says, oh yes, and that kind of awakens a sense of hope within you. And it basically, you have to challenge your own assumptions about what is possible and what is not possible. So that is also something that we can see as part of a profound transformation of organization, is that we are able to see possibilities, not as how things are now, but how things could be. So one of the qualities of agent of change is to learn how to see potential in yourself, see potential in others, and see potential in your organization. Mm-hmm. Another important factor is about to learn how to assess progress. You see, because imagine you're doing a lot of work, but then you look back and you see you don't see any progress, that also diminishes hope. So it's like, well, I've tried so much and I did so many things, but look, nothing has changed, you see. So one of the other capacities that each one of us can develop and strengthen is that capacity to learn how to see progress. And we actually have to look back and say, okay, well, when we are honest, there's a lot of things that have happened, and we can identify this and we can identify that. And collectively, it is a source of great joy when all of us are able to recognize progress. So oftentimes when you want to, this is also part of a purposeful organization, you can see, is that when they have a space where they can assess progress together. And that is such a wonderful exercise to do, where people can add their perspective or their this is what has been progress to me. And it's a source of great joy to many. So that is very important when you're thinking about continuing this will to act, is to really to look at the concept of hope. And that may actually be one of our topics for next time, if you wish. We can look into that more. How does hope, play a role? How can we actually develop those capacities of seeing progress and seeing potential? Friends, I regret to give the bad news, but we're actually already like at our 1 hour. Time really, really flies. Let me put you on mute, all of you. Sorry, because there's some. It is. We want to start in time, and we want to end in time, as a good habit. I want to thank you, Astrid, for all of your valuable insights and your wonderful contributions. And it is very interesting to hear that you've moved from the United States to Vanuatu, to the other side of the world, and to actually are engaged in in this organization that is very purposeful, and also learning firsthand what is required also internally to make it a purposeful organization. So thank you very much, Astrid. And I hope that everyone really gains new insights into this rather short webinar, I must say. I would like to invite you for the next one, which is on the next month, which is on the 19th of July. So let me see. This is another change of workplace. 19th of July is again the same time, 8 o'clock Central European time. And what we were discussing at that time the topic of building an environment of trust, you know, because it's such an essential characteristic of a purposeful organization is that people trust each other, that they can be free to be themselves and to freely like be honest and to really like trust each other. So you can now, I believe that the registration is already open as of now. So you can visit the website soul.com and click to that to change your workplace seminar and to register for the next time. Now, if you or anyone else wish to be more active part of this webinar, like Astrid did today, if you want to share your own experience, or if you have burning questions, like I really want to discuss this, we can use it as a case study or as a, you know, as a dialogue between you know, all of us. So please also mention that in your registration. Now, we are really looking forward to seeing you next time on the 19th of July. And please, it is our aspiration to really engage many individuals like yourself, you know, in this space, to really learn together and to share experience and insights about what does it take to bring about meaningful organizational transformation, and to also reflect on our own personal development. So I would like to invite you, like, please register yourself and also register others or invite others to join, because it's going to be, hopefully we can create a movement together as we've talked about. So I want to thank you again, Astrid, and thank you all for participating. And I will hope to see you all next time on the 19th of July. Bye-bye. See you all.